Strap yourselves in. It's going to be a sexy one.
You ain't so tough with that bad boy tuck. I'ma get it how I'm living, I'ma walk the walk. Outline my lines, I rap through thought.
Hello dear sweet friend, and welcome back to Football Therapy with me, your host Jan. Do hope you're doing well, mate. Really do hope that. There's an article on The Athletic, The Bookkeeper, exploring Chelsea's remarkable finances and why they can keep spending. Sexy indeed. The unsavoury topic of money in football. It's all over the gaff, yeah? People point score against opposition fans now about PSR, creative accounting, and, revenue. But, let's be real. Football is and will always be about scoring goals and winning football matches and creating a bond between club and fan. And that disclaimer must be offered early doors in this video. It's no one ultimately, really, everyone gets dopamine hits from transfers, and that's been the case since like the 90s, really. Even before the internet, you'd see it on the back pages, or they'd just pop up out of nowhere, new players, and it'll be exciting. But before even transfers, people just cared about their clubs and the game and scoring goals and winning, and that is paramount. But now, we've evolved so far, people are getting dopamine hits from creative accounting and just flexing money. How much money does your owners have? Oh, bring in the Qataris, because they've got bottom-endless money pits. And obviously, Chelsea owners have spent loads of money, which is better than not spending money, of course, but how are they spending it? Look, we're going to learn about this today in this video. I'm going to go through it. Of course, daily uploads here on Football Therapy, speaking about the games, tactics, transfers, news stories, just everything related Chelsea. So thank you for joining me, and thank you for joining the fun, liking and subscribing. I'm hoping we're going to learn some stuff here. I might skip through certain parts of this. It is behind a paywall, so I might not read it verbatim. But there's a guy called Chris Weatherspoon who The Athletic have brought in to basically look at what's going on at Chelsea. Conjure up the memories of Chelsea's most notable moments over the past couple of years, and chances are actual football on the ground will be thin. So yes, it's all been chaos and finances. Of course, we had a few feel-good stories, Cole Palmer reaching the Conference League final, but ultimately, events off the field is what we've been talking about here. It references this article here, gives you a little bit of a run-up, speaking about why Abramovich had Chelsea sanctioned. We don't need to go into that, but we know afterwards the Bowley Clear Lake Consortium were announced as preferred bidder by Rain Group, and they had to commit 2.5 billion to buy the club alongside another 1.75 billion in infrastructure. So remember, when Rain sold Chelsea, it wasn't just to the highest bidder, it was to who they thought would run Chelsea the best, right? And who would commit, and whoever won the bid would have to commit loads of money to the women's team academy, Chelsea Foundation, new stadium, yada 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 yada. It's been mental. More than $1 billion's been spent on flops, a few hits, lots of South American children, some maybe players, yes, we put. It's been eventful. It's been a journey, but it's been frustrating ultimately, and we're at the point now where I think all Chelsea fans, just want success. No more excuses. No more nonsense. And mistakes have been made, learning from mistakes, and we want to, essentially win. So what are the financial situations at Chelsea? This is what this article is about. Chelsea's official line on the women's team sale was more commendable than a mere PSR swerve. Of course, we sold the women's team for about 200 million quid. Chelsea women would be repositioned to sit alongside rather than beneath the men's team. Remember, this is a huge thing what Chelsea have done in terms of selling the women's team. It's not about being like an arm of the men's team. This is Chelsea women Chelsea men. They're both separate entities owned by the same ownership, and we're doing this because we think the women's team we value them more. Independent sponsors with their own sponsor. 3, breaking transfer records. We're trying to raise the women's game. We're doing it for like for the girls. Slay Queen, which it sounds great, but they're doing it because, I mean, to be honest, there's a cynical truth here. The women's game is undervalued, and let's get this right early doors. They're doing it all for money. And the women's team women's football is undervalued. It will make a lot more money, but they've sold their own team to them to basically dodge and navigate profit and sustainability rule breach, which they've done. They sold it for 200 million, and they used, what's that American team as well, that Angel City FC. They use that as a sort of benchmark. And they will also argue as well that that even though a lot of people are going, what are you mental? Chelsea women is not worth 200 million. They'll go, well, you're not thinking, you're not forecasting appropriately, because in the future this would be worth more. And you'll look back then and think it's a bargain. I don't know. We'll see what happens there. Chelsea women, of course, was the big recent story after the hotels in terms of navigating financial rules. Okay, so we're all caught up in the story right now. 1 second. Okay, so we're caught up. Let's get into the scenario of Chelsea, right? Here we are. Chelsea's operating losses have now exceeded £200 million in each of the last 3 seasons. Hey! That's Blueco seasons. I'd like to sort of say at this point, to be a little bit fair, there was always going to be front-loaded pain with this ownership, where they'd literally clean the deck for better or for worse. They'd get all their own infrastructure in, new playing staff, managerial staff, medical staff, everything. And there would be, the idea is you put all the investment in the front and then you let it pay dividends down the line. So where the business model was always going to be the biggest red of their tenure, was going to be right at the beginning. Front-loaded pain for long-term gain. That is the game. Poetry. So here you go. I mean, to be honest, it was always running at a loss under Abramovich, especially since the Sarri era here and onwards. Considering we made a lot of money through sales, that seems pretty wild. Let's read this here, shall we? Why did Chelsea lose so much money? The reasons are varied, guys. A sluggish revenue growth is one. Chelsea's turnover last season was only £25 million, 6% higher than 2017-18. That is the lowest growth among the big 6, with Man City and Arsenal enjoying over 200 million in revenue increases in the same period. So Chelsea not moving with the inflation. As a result, Chelsea's revenue is now the only Premier League's 6th highest, down from 4th. To be honest, I'm kind of surprised we're still sick with how everything's going. So we were 4th in 2018. On the international, did we drop after that, even when we won the Champions League? On the international stage, Chelsea's income is now 10th highest in football. A little over a decade ago, they were 5th. Wow. So when we'd won the Champions League for the first time, I guess, that we were 5th to 10th. I mean, to be in the top 10 is European elite, and that's why we should be a Champions League team. Because there's more than 10 teams in the Champions League. We're the 10th biggest revenue, right? Again, unsexy money, but it's just how it is. Yeah, that's pretty damning, right? Chelsea's income from Stamford Bridge has been particularly lethargic, especially when we're putting on poor performances and we have record low attendances in certain games, like recently. Last season's £80 million in gate receipts represented a club record. Wow, okay, but the needle has probably because they've just put the seats up and done those, what's it called? The VIP stuff. What's it called? The word. My brain's melting. Anyway, certain prices up. It has hardly budged in more than a decade in terms of the money. In the 2011-12 Champions League winning season, there you go, Chelsea made 77.7. So 2.4 million difference over 10 years ago. Yeah, no wonder we're like broke, because we're not moving with the time. I mean, this is huge, isn't it? Much of the anemic growth owes to Stamford Bridge's low capacity. At a shade over 40,000, Chelsea's home is only the 11th largest in domestic English football, which is crazy, really, and will drop a spot further when Everton's new stadium is opened next season. Moreover, Stamford Bridge actually punches above its weight. Chelsea's matchday income was England's 5th highest last season. Interesting. That low capacity leaves a lot on the table. Chelsea benefit from playing in one of the most affluent areas in London. Without their generous location, gate receipts would be far lower. Yeah, off the lovely Fulham Broadway. Incredible real estate, Chelsea's Stamford Bridge. It stands to reason then that increasing the capacity would see match day revenue upwards. Yeah, I mean, we should be the biggest and best, well, we, in my opinion, are the biggest and best club in London, but we should have, I do think a stadium that reflects that. I understand it's the hallowed home of Chelsea and, you know, I get not moving, but if we could just rebuild and update it, it's so hard. It's like a philosophical, existential nightmare, this stadium situation. But yeah, I mean, I hate how Tottenham have the best stadium in London in terms of, you know, whatever, experience it, whatever. All right, let's move on. This is an interesting part. I want to talk about the wage bill. What's the wage bill at? Because this is something I've been referencing recently and it's been a huge talking point at Chelsea. A common theme since the change of ownership at Stamford Bridge has been a reported nosedive in the club's wage bill. On the face of it, little has changed. The club's wage bill was 338 million last campaign, just 2.2 million of what it was in the 21-22 campaign, and still the Premier League's 4th highest, as it was back then in 21-22. In between, it leapt to 404 million, making them one of the only 2 English clubs to exceed 400 million. That must have been, yeah, that's the Graham Potter era where we didn't have enough players, the seats in the dressing room. You had your Aubameyangs on crazy money, your Koulibaly's on crazy money. You know, there was players all over the gaff. Havertz and Werner were still there earning loads of money. Mason Mount, Mount wasn't on loads of money, that's why he left. But do you know what I mean? It was like crazy mania. And it's still one of the highest, but because Chelsea have way more players than everyone else, they'll argue that their average wage is incredibly low, because it is, really. You know, they signed Cole Palmer, stuck him on 70k a week, and you've only just given him an increase to 120, which is a third of Bukayo Saka. Do you know what I mean? So the wages are very, very low and reasonable. And this is something that I've been very firm on. I like the incentive-based wage bill. I feel like just bringing in, when you're like struggling as a club in terms of identity. Man United's the optimal example. Not right now, but say the last decade, you're struggling with an identity. You're trying to clamber back up to the top. You're getting in just your Casemiros, your Varans, giving them 400k a week, and you're still swirling down the drain. You're massively... The mercenary model doesn't work as well as it did, basically. So I'm not saying I endorse this model that we're doing fully, because I would just give the bag to a senior striker, and say, look, kids, you're all on incentive-based wages. This guy's a superstar. He's going to raise the floor. You know, suck it. I would break the rules in certain areas and be like, this is just it, you know. If you become a superstar, you will just earn more and more and more over the time. But this guy deserves the higher wages off the mark. Do you know what I mean? Yes, so I want to show you this graphic as well. So this is wild. This is something that I've been talking about on the channel. Chelsea's wages to revenue ratio improved 7%, but it's still the worst of the Premier League's big 6. So this is essentially how much of your revenue you spend on wages. I guess this is last season because it's got Luton and Sheffield. So we're down here. We spend 72% of our revenue on wages, right? Which means we want to earn more revenue, so that's less. You know, maybe like 50% or something, because we've got such a massive scope to make more money. And also, we probably, you know, trim the fat a little bit in the squad of, like, with the higher earners, like your Sterlings and your Nkunkus that are on insane money, you know. But one thing that I really want to show you here, I've said it before on the channel, is Aston Villa. Look at Aston Villa. Aston Villa, who are going for Champions League, who are in the Champions League, who everyone's going, wow, Aston Villa, Unai Emery, proper club, proper club, proper club. They are spending over 91% of their club revenue on wages. So everyone's like, I understand the fans going, wow, look, they got Asensio, Rashford, Donyell Malen, Axel Disasi in January, proper club, reinforcing. And yeah, I wanted Chelsea to sign a striker in January, and I still want that back, go back in time, and I think maybe they would have done it. But Villa are like massively in trouble here because they need Champions League. If they don't get Champions League, I reckon they will get it because they look better than us at the moment. They get top 5, but they are rolling the dice hugely, and it's no given that they'll get it. If they don't get Champions League football, they're in huge trouble. Your Asensios, your Rashford loans, they just simply won't be able to pay their wages because even though they've got rich owners, Villa, this is completely unsustainable. So everyone making kissy faces at Villa, Forest. Oh, I'd love to support them right now. It's suicide. Do you know what I mean? In terms of like how you run a club. So there's that. Of course, there's player trading as well. Chelsea have always done really, really well in selling players. There's a graphic here that demonstrates that Chelsea's profit from player trading dwarfs all domestic rivals over the last decade. We've made in the 10 years we've made nearly a billion, which is mental. Even now, I mean, we'll even make a lot of money in terms of how much money will sell where players will, and Nkunku will bring a few quid. There'll be other players as well, your Renato Vegas, your Carney Chukwuemakers of this world. They'll make a lot of money. Of course, in terms of old ownership, we were always good, even under Abramovich. Chelsea made huge operating losses under Abramovich, but we still made money through player sales. For as much heat Marina Granovskaya got as the Chelsea director or head or the big dog at Chelsea, she was a great negotiator. The money she got for Diego Costa and Eden Hazard was quite frankly insane in terms of how much we got for both. I think Hazard, I worked out after all the Champions League and La Liga win clauses, we made 160 million euros on Hazard, which is 145 million pounds for a player with 12 months left on this deal, wanted to leave and was 28. Which is insane. I mean, look, I think he's the most talented player to ever play for Chelsea, but like that is chicken oriental, mate. Absolutely incroyable. So yes, lots of investment into Chelsea. Let's quickly look here. Can Chelsea keep signing players? The answer is a firm yes. In fact, they're already doing it. 167 million pounds went on new players last summer. Before, of course, we've already added 60 million pound duo Kenda and Asugo. As we've seen from the Premier League perspective, Chelsea have no issues whatsoever when it comes to spending even more this summer. The UEFA picture is less clear. Of course, we've navigated PSR rules, but the UEFA rules are different. But yeah, Chelsea, but you've got Ornstein and Romano out there going, yeah, Chelsea gonna pay, Chelsea gonna keep paying, buying players, spending a lot of money. That is a continued situation. They will keep investing in playing staff, right? Of course, there is the scenario that the Chelsea owners are putting a lot of money into the club. So Chelsea received significantly more funds from their owners than the other club. Of course, the Villa owners are rich. They're trying to put money in. The Newcastle owners are rich. They are owned by Saudi Arabia, the public investment fund, for them as well. So they put loads of money in. Of course, Newcastle with the Saudis would have put a lot more in if they weren't hamstrung by profit and sustainability rules. Whereas Chelsea have done all the creative accounting, so they've done this. The owners have put 800 million pounds into the club. Chelsea make huge losses, and there are elements of those losses the owners would surely like to improve quickly, like Champions League football, a front of shirt sponsor. But the excess has not been by accident, and as The Athletic recently explained, there's neither a shortage of funding behind the owners, nor is there any sign of that funding having to be serviced by the club. If Abramovich was English football's first ultra-wealthy benefactor, his successors have simply carried out the trend that he started. Right, let's bring this home. Make no bones about it, they are putting all this money into Chelsea because they want to make money. They're not doing it because, like Abramovich, he did it because he just loved football, wanted to win, and had a bottomless pit of money. And yes, I have been very firm on my opinion on Abramovich not being a vessel for sports washing for Russia. I think he was just a football fan. He nearly bought Fulham, he bought Chelsea, thank God. and he, you know, he just loved football, do you know what I mean? These guys, Clear Lake Capital and Blueco and Todd Bowley and Clear Lake Capital, Blueco, haven't bought Chelsea because they love football. They might learn to enjoy it, but that's not why they've bought it. Football as a whole, more notably and more importantly, Premier League football is profoundly undervalued, and the scope for financial growth is just insane, is incredible. Not just Chelsea in terms of in isolation, in terms of, you know, bigger brand revenue, gate receipts, Stamford Bridge, yada yada yada, but you know, dedicated streaming platforms, just everything. There's so much that could happen to the Premier League. It's the biggest and best league in the world, in the most watched thing in the world in football, and you know, in the top 10 clubs, there's not one in the top 10 football and sports institutions in the world. There isn't a football club in there, or Real Madrid may just sneak in near the bottom. It's all NFL teams and American sports teams that make the most money, which is insane. So American, you know, business owners look at that and go, well, the Premier League's watched way more than American football. Why is American football teams making way more money? There's a huge gap in the market here. Let's fill it. So that's what they're doing essentially. So they look at this initial £1 billion investment in the long term, in terms of their capital, Clear Lake Capital firm, and be like, you know, in the next 20 decades, all the families investing into these, you know, markets will make much more money. And that's the cynical truth. Right. That's the money situation. You know, if for those of you who are interested in that, there it is. Let me know what you think. We'll get back to football transfers, players, matches, stories, and all that, you know, stuff. Moving forwards, until there's another story on finances. Let me know what you think, though. Please do comment down below. Let me know if you enjoyed this type of content as a bit of a change as well. Thanks for liking. Thanks for subscribing. And I hope to see you back here soon. Peace.